Hey kids, it's the Mr. Fly here. Hope you're well, out and about on a glorious day on a bike review. Another Royal Enfield for you today, and this is another of the brand new 2019 twins. Today I'm riding the Continental GT 650. Stick around and stay tuned if you're interested in this motorcycle. So I've literally just jumped on this bike from the bike den here in Watford. And it's amazing, isn't it? You don't have to ride a bike for very long, particularly if you've ridden a few different bikes, before you can tell whether you like them or not. I've literally done about 800 yards on this machine so far. And what strikes me is just how this bike feels so different to other Royal Enfields I've ridden, with the exception of the Interceptor, which I rode a few weeks back. This bike is very similar technically to the Interceptor in that it's got the same engine, the 650 twin. Same state of tune. The big difference is that this bike is styled more as a calf racer. Now, I rode the old Continental GT some years back, and I have to say it's my least favourite Royal Enfield that I've ridden. And in the main, I'm not a big fan of calf racer styling. But this is pretty subtle actually. The riding position of this is not extreme at all. Even though it's got these sort of pseudo clip-on handlebars, I'm not canted forward in a really sporty way. It doesn't feel that much different seating position wise to the Interceptor. It really is a pretty comfortable ride. Now this bike I'm on is absolutely bone stock. It's got the stock exhaust, stock seat, stock everything. And as you'll see when we do the walk around, the styling really is quite subtle in terms of its calf racer look. These bikes really have come on leaps and bounds though, because this just feels no less quality to ride than any other Japanese or British modern motorcycle. Handling is nice around these corners. It's got a lovely low thrum to the engine. Nice and low revving as well. So a really sort of lazy ride. They're the sort of bike that you could take out on a Sunday afternoon and really enjoy riding around the countryside or whatever. And you're not going to feel like you're going to kill yourself at every corner, which is sometimes how I feel when I'm out on my bikes. Okay, let's go through the practical points then while I'm behind this mini white van. First off, seating position I've said already is comfortable. I'm quite upright and my legs are at a slightly acute angle. The pegs are set backwards slightly. My feet are behind my knees, if you like. So the leg tuck is relatively sporty. But I've only leant forward a very minor amount. There's really no pressure on my wrists whatsoever. So it's comfortable in that respect. The seat itself as well, this is the standard seat, is nicely padded, quite hard, but it's not uncomfortable. Brakes seem to work pretty well, as I just demonstrated. The gearbox is nice and smooth. Clutch is nice and light. I've not had any issues with false neutrals or finding gears, anything like that yet. They retained the dual clock instrumentation, which I love. Again, they've not been tempted to go down the TFT route, which I actually quite like on this style of bike. I think analog clocks are the way to go. And also love the fact that it's got the two clocks. Some of the cheaper Triumph retros have just a single clock, the Street Twin for example. I definitely prefer the two clocks that the Royal Enfield's got. The mirrors on here, however, I hate. They look very Mickey Mouse. The good news is you can buy loads of accessories for these bikes, including bar end mirrors, which I think would look great on this style of machine. Having said the mirrors are horrible, they do work okay. A little bit of distortion on the right hand one, and a little bit of vibration, nothing terrible, but they work fine. They just don't look very good to my eyes. Yeah, lovely note about this engine. Sounds like a proper motorcycle. I love it. Now, I said when I rode the old Continental GT, I wasn't a big fan of it. It was my least favourite. Well, I have to say, from a riding point of view, I think I might prefer this over the Interceptor. I definitely prefer the looks of the Interceptor, but just this riding position feels nice on here. It's certainly not extreme at all, which is how I've kind of come to think of calf races. I'll just try the back brake. The back brake's pretty good. Clutch has got a lovely light action about it. Glad to see we've got a proper fuel gauge on here. So many manufacturers don't go with that. We don't have, it doesn't appear to have a gear position indicator though, not that that's an issue. Right, let's confuse everybody and come right the way around this roundabout. Well, nice one, van. Right, let's listen to this engine. Yeah, very nice, this engine. It's got plenty of torque, and it's got what I would call a sort of a lazy tune, in that it just sort of lollops along, which is very in keeping with the character of the bike. And although this isn't the best road to test it, I have to say the handling feels lovely on here. It's nice and planted feeling. Of course, these bikes now have got the chassis designed by Harris Performance that Royal Enfield bought out a couple of years back specifically, I think, with these bikes in mind, and they've done a lovely job on this. Oh, another white van. What I need to do is find myself a decent little test route around this part of the world so I can get some good roads in, but there we are. Haven't found it yet. I need to study the maps. Anyway, what I'm going to do is turn right up here at my favourite spot, and I'll park up, I'll show you around the bike, and I'll talk you through the spec in the usual way. This engine just has a fabulous note, and that's just on the stock exhaust. It'd definitely be better with a little bit extra volume though, and that's again one of the other accessories that Royal Enfield have for this bike is a slightly louder exhaust. I'd love to hear it with that. Yeah, the bike might only put out 47 brake horsepower, but there's no lack of power. It doesn't feel like a slouch, that's for sure. Oh, there's my turn. No, it sounds and feels like a motorcycle should. It's proper old school this, but it doesn't feel, it's not rough and agricultural like previous Royal Enfields have been. As I said before, it feels, you know, not dissimilar to a Japanese bike, but it's got that lovely twin thrum about it. Alright, let's pull over here then, and I'll show you around this beast, talk you through the spec in the usual way. Well, let's just do a little check and put the stand down with the engine running. If I can find the stand, there it is, got a little bit to help you find it. There you go, and it does run with the stand down. Previous Royal Enfields haven't done that, so that's killer as well. Right, here we go then. The Royal Enfield Continental GT 650. And this one, as I say, is completely bone standard, so it's got the standard exhaust, standard seats, etc. All of the pictures I've seen of these so far have had the cowl on the seat to make it look more calf racer. This is how they come as standard with this seat, which you can actually get a pillion on. And what you know, I think that might make it look a bit better. That makes it look less calf racer and a bit less extreme. But yeah, nice bike to ride. Anyway, enough chat. Let me get the other camera out and I'll talk you through the spec. Okay, here we go then. Something slightly different. Going to use the old other GoPro for the walk around for a change this time. Here we go. Right, let's get nice and close in. So here she is then, the Continental GT, and there's the new engine, 648cc air oil cooled parallel twin, 270-degree firing order, which is what gives it that lovely sound that I was talking about. It actually puts out 47 horsepower. I think I said 48 earlier, at 7250 RPM, which makes it A2 license friendly. So if you haven't got your full license, you could learn your craft on one of these, which is a good thing. 52 newton meters of torque at 5,250 RPM, but the unusual thing that they've done on the tuning on this bike is actually made 80% of the torque available below 2,500, so it's a very, very flat torque curve. It's not really a curve, in fact, it's there all the time, which makes it very satisfying to ride, and it doesn't feel like a bike with only 47 horsepower. Feels, you know, if I were to guess, I would have said this was up there in the sort of 75-80 horsepower bracket, but there we go. So they've done a good job there. Let's look at the brakes. So on the front we've got a single disc. Works absolutely fine though. Works much better than you'd think. It's one of these bi-bray, so it's Brembo's sort of cheaper end, but it works an absolute treat. So that's fine. And on the back we've got a single disc as well, with, let's come around here, see if we can find it. There you go, at least it's the caliper is tucked up at the top, so it's not going to get all the crud in it. The front, by the way, was a 320mm disc, got the back as a 240mm disc, but they work really, really well, which is nice. Suspension on the front, 41mm diameter forks, so quite beefy. No adjustment that I can see though. And then on the back we've got these twin coils over shocks, which I think is different to the Interceptor, if I remember right, but again, it's in keeping with the sort of style of the bike. The seat height on this is slightly lower, 793mm, so dead easy for shorter riders to ride. You can get your feet flat on the deck. I've got a 32-inch leg inseam, and I can get my feet flat on the deck, no problem at all. And here we see the standard seat, the one that comes without the cowl, as I was talking about earlier. Weight of the bike, 198 kilograms dry. Doesn't feel at all heavy, and again, because you can get your feet nicely planted, it's completely unintimidating. The tank capacity on here, this is the nicely shaped tank, 12.5 litres, and Royal Enfield claims 70 miles per gallon, so you're going to get a pretty good range out of that. I haven't done the maths, but you know, I would have thought towards 200 miles out of a tank is realistic. Electronics wise, hasn't got much to talk of. Has got Bosch ABS though on the front and back, so which is a great safety feature, of course. And the price of the bike, 5,700 in the standard colours, so that's things like this and the black, I think, regarded as standard. If you want the chrome finish, then you're looking at 6,200. The chrome does look really cool. What else can we talk about? It does come in a lot of colours. I mentioned it's got a 6-speed gearbox, which is the first for Royal Enfield, same on the Interceptor of course. A2 licence friendly, slip assist clutch, all sorts of accessories available, and yeah, I think they've done a nice job. Let's just look at some of the details here. So we've had a look at the clocks. All the switch gear is really nice, works absolutely fine, nice and tactile, nothing low quality about it. The fit and finish on the bike is really impressive. The engine looks nice. I love the fact they've actually got twin exhausts on this. Yeah, nice job, Royal Enfield. Alright, that's enough chat. Let's ride some more, see if we can find some slightly faster roads. Alright, one of the things I do like about this as well is this sort of, what's it called, like a Monza style caps, lockable, but like the way they've got that on there. Alrighty, let's fire up again. No kickstart sadly on this modern day Enfield. Right, all clear. Lovely little spot this just here. Sadly it's just this one little spot tucked in amongst the metropolis. The sort of classic Royal Enfield territory. Right, what I'm going to do is go and find, if I can, a slightly faster bit of dual carriageway, just to wind her up a bit, if the speed limit allows, and just see what she feels like on slightly faster roads. Sadly, I think my quest for faster roads is slightly thwarted. Just around here, I'm in the environs of Elstree and Watford at the moment. Very busy part of outer London. And sadly not any roads that I can really open her up to give her a try. I'm going to have to see if I can get hold of one of these Royal Enfields for a bit of a longer term review. That would be great to see what they're actually like to live with. Must just take this opportunity while I'm riding up here behind this truck to say thanks to the guys up at the Bike Den in Watford, the local Royal Enfield dealer. It's a great place to go, just as a bit of a destination. You can get yourself a cup of coffee there. They've got loos. If you're out for a ride out, go and check them out. Get yourself a test ride on some of these bikes. I suppose what this does do is gives me the chance to see what the bike is like in traffic. It does feel quite light when you're actually riding it, and because you're nice and low, it's very confidence inspiring. So yeah, no problem at all in traffic. What do I get to if I do a right here? I'm in real danger of getting lost. Let's go up here and find out. So I'm really trying to think of things that I don't like about this bike, because I like to give as balanced a review as I can and be honest about machines. And I have to say I'm struggling. I don't like these mirrors, as I mentioned before. They're easily changed out though. They work okay, but just don't like the look of them. But other than that, the way the bike rides, its comfort, its go, is all good. I'm not too keen maybe on this yoke arrangement and the clip-on styling that they've done here, but I guess that's all part of the calf racer thing. I guess between this and the Interceptor, I do prefer the looks of the Interceptor, there's no doubt about that, particularly in the cool chrome colour that they do. But I think from a riding experience, I actually prefer the GT. Yeah, well done Royal Enfield, you've done a top job on these. Excellent value for money. Really very little not to like. I'm seriously tempted by these, I have to say. Okay, that's it for this time. Hope you've enjoyed that quick first ride look at the Royal Enfield Continental GT 650. Great value for money bike, and leaps and bounds ahead of Royal Enfields that have come before it. This is the first time you've been to my channel, and thanks very much for watching. I don't just do bike reviews here on the Missenden Flyer, but I do how-tos, I do trips and tours, I do bits and pieces in the garage, I do reviews of the newspapers, bike newspapers that is. Basically anything and everything to do with motorcycles, I try and cover it here on the Missenden Flyer. It'd be great to have you along. If you hit that subscribe button, you won't miss any future videos. Okay, that's it for now. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.